For a moment, the game was already over. Raiders players were celebrating in the snow. The ball had come loose from Tom Brady's hands. Oakland had recovered it. In playoff football, moments like that usually end the story. But the referees stopped the game. After a long review, they announced a rule most fans had never heard of. And with that decision, the play was reversed. Some still believe that single call didn't just change the game. It changed the future of the NFL. Long before the final controversy, the atmosphere inside Foxborough Stadium already felt unusual. The cold air had settled across Massachusetts early that evening, and by kickoff, the snow had begun to fall steadily across the field. At first, the snowfall was light, thin white flakes drifting through the bright stadium lights. But as the game progressed, the storm intensified, covering the turf in a growing layer of snow. Players could feel the cold through their gloves. Their breath turned into visible clouds each time they exhaled. The football itself became harder to grip as snow and moisture built up on the leather. Despite the difficult conditions, the stakes of the game were enormous. It was January 19, 2002, an AFC Divisional Playoff game in the National Football League. The winner would move one step closer to the Super Bowl. On one side stood the Oakland Raiders, a team widely considered the stronger roster entering the matchup. They had an explosive offense and an experienced defense capable of controlling the tempo of the game. On the other side were the New England Patriots, a team still searching for its identity. Only months earlier, their starting quarterback had been replaced by a relatively unknown backup after an early season injury. His name was Tom Brady. At the time, Brady was not yet a superstar. Few analysts believed he would become the central figure of an NFL dynasty. Most fans saw him as simply a young quarterback trying to keep his team competitive. And on that snowy night in Foxborough, keeping the Patriots alive was proving extremely difficult. As the fourth quarter approached, the scoreboard reflected what many expected. Oakland was ahead. Time was running out. And unless something dramatic happened soon, the Patriots' season would end on that frozen field. Late in the fourth quarter, the tension inside Foxborough Stadium became almost unbearable. The Raiders still held the lead. The game clock continued draining precious seconds. Every play now carried enormous weight. Because there were so few opportunities left, for the Patriots, the situation was simple. They needed to move the ball down the field, score quickly, and somehow keep their season alive. Tom Brady stepped into the huddle, listening carefully to the play call. Snowflakes drifted across his helmet as he walked back toward the line of scrimmage. Across from him, the Raiders' defense crouched low, ready to attack the moment the ball was snapped. The stadium lights reflected off the falling snow, creating a strange glow across the field. Then the ball was snapped. Brady dropped back. He scanned the field for an open receiver, while his offensive line struggled to hold the Raiders' pass rush. But the pocket collapsed faster than expected. A defender closed in from Brady's right side. The hit came suddenly. The defender struck Brady just as he began to move the football forward. The contact knocked the ball loose from his hands. For a brief moment, the football bounced across the snowy field. Then a Raiders defender dove forward and recovered it. Instantly, the Oakland sideline erupted in celebration. Players raised their arms. Coaches shouted. For anyone watching, the moment looked final. In the NFL, a turnover late in the fourth quarter almost always means the same thing. The game is over. And for the Raiders, that was exactly what this moment seemed to be. A defensive stop, a recovered fumble, a playoff victory. But the referees were not finished. As Raiders players celebrated the turnover, the referees signaled that the play would be reviewed. At first, the decision did not seem unusual. In the NFL, turnovers in critical moments are often reviewed automatically. Officials want to confirm possession and ensure the play followed the rules. But as the review continued, something about the situation began to feel different. The referees gathered near the sideline monitor. They watched the replay from multiple camera angles, again and again. Each time, the stadium crowd waited in silence. Snow continued falling over the field as players stood motionless, trying to understand what the officials were examining. On the replay, the moment of impact became clearer. Brady's arm had started moving forward when the defender struck him. But just before the ball came loose, Brady appeared to pull the ball back toward his body. The movement lasted less than a second, yet that tiny detail was about to become the center of one of the most controversial rulings in NFL history. Because the referees were not simply deciding whether Brady had fumbled, they were deciding whether that motion qualified as a forward pass attempt. And that decision depended on a rule most fans had never heard of. The responsibility for interpreting the play fell on the officiating crew, led by referee Walt Coleman. Coleman had years of experience in the NFL, and like all referees, he carried the difficult responsibility of interpreting the rulebook in real time. But the NFL rulebook is a complicated document. Hundreds of pages of definitions, interpretations, and situational guidelines. Many rules are rarely discussed, some are rarely enforced, yet every one of them remains part of the official framework of the game. Standing near the sideline monitor, Coleman and the officiating crew continued reviewing the replay. They examined Brady's arm motion frame by frame. They studied the exact moment the defender made contact, and they considered how that motion fit within a specific clause buried deep inside the rulebook, a clause known as the tuck rule. The tuck rule was one of the most obscure interpretations in the NFL rulebook. Even many experienced fans had never heard of it. The rule addressed a very specific situation. If a quarterback began a forward passing motion, but then attempted to pull the ball back toward his body before completing the throw, the rule stated that losing control of the ball during that motion would not be considered a fumble. Instead, it would be ruled an incomplete pass. That distinction changed everything. A fumble meant the Raiders had recovered the ball. The game would effectively be over. An incomplete pass meant the Patriots would keep possession. Their drive would continue, and their season would still be alive. When the referees returned to the field, the stadium leaned forward in anticipation. The decision was about to be announced. Referee Walt Coleman stepped toward the microphone. The stadium fell quiet. Snow continued falling across the field. Then he spoke. After reviewing the play, the officials determined that Tom Brady's arm had begun moving forward before he lost control of the football. Under the tuck rule, the play was ruled an incomplete pass. The fumble was overturned. The Patriots would keep the ball. For the Raiders, the celebration ended instantly. Players who moments earlier believed they had won the game now stood in disbelief. The Patriots, meanwhile, suddenly had a second chance. And in playoff football, a second chance can change everything. With possession restored, the Patriots returned to the field. The game clock continued to run. The snowstorm had not slowed. Visibility was difficult. The football was slick. Every step on the frozen turf required balance. Yet the Patriots' offense began moving downfield. Slowly, carefully. Each play gained only a few yards. But those yards were enough. Eventually, the Patriots reached field goal range, and with the season on the line, kicker Adam Vinatieri stepped onto the field. The conditions were brutal. Snow covered the ground. The wind cut through the stadium. The kick would travel 45 yards in a blizzard. Yet, Vinatieri struck the ball cleanly. The kick rose into the snowy night, and somehow, it sailed perfectly between the uprights. The game was tied. Minutes later, the Patriots would win in overtime.
In the years that followed, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots would build one of the most successful dynasties in NFL history. But many fans still point to that snowy playoff game as the moment everything began. A single play, a rule few people understood, and a decision that reversed what looked like the end of the game. Sometimes history changes because of great players, sometimes because of great moments, and sometimes because of a rule hidden deep inside a book few people ever read. On a snowy night in Foxborough, that rule kept a season alive, and it may have started one of the greatest dynasties the NFL has ever seen.
This case is over, but the truth is not. The next story is already waiting, and it's darker than you think. Stay with NightCase Chronicle. I'll see you in the next case.